She's the friend who'll show up with coffee or wine when you need it most, but probably wine. Good vibes are on the way. Welcome to Erin O'Malley's Feel Good Frequency.
Hi, welcome back to Erin O'Malley's Feel Good Frequency. I'm Erin. It's wonderful to have you here. I spend so much of my days now looking for guests to be on this podcast, people who are selflessly making the world a better place. And I got to tell you, I have never seen anybody do what the person I'm about to introduce you to has done. In fact, I read about him in People magazine a couple weeks back. And so, of course, it became my mission to track him down. I've become quite the reporter, and I did that. His name is Brian Flynn. He has done something that most people never do once, but he's done it twice. Sit back, enjoy this gentleman and the goodness that he has put in the world. Welcome, Brian Flynn.
Well, thank you for doing this show. I mean, I can't think of a better reason to do a podcast than to make people feel good and give them inspiring stories. So thank you, Erin O'Malley.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, there's just too much negative. You know, you can't watch the news without just not even wanting to get out of bed. And then they give you maybe like 23 seconds of positive at the end. And I'm sorry, I don't think 23 seconds is enough to focus on the good. And we need more of it. So I found your good by going through People magazine earlier this month. And this story is so beautiful. So I want to touch on that, but then I really want to go backwards because it's not like this is the only incredible thing you've done. So you surprised this boy. He's 4 years old. Is that right?
He was 4 years old, yeah, at the time. I saw him this last week. It's 4 years later, so he's probably about 8 now. And it was his first communion that I surprised him at.
Oh, my gosh. So you surprise him at his first communion, and the reason he's even having a first communion is because you gave him part of your liver?
Yeah. He had a pretty bad liver disease when he was around 4, and they were searching for a donor, and I had coincidentally, as part of a midlife crisis, decided I wanted to donate my liver to somebody, and he was a match, and it all worked out. But last week was a great reunion. I've met him twice since the surgery, but this was great because he didn't know it was coming, and it's a big day for him and his family. And to be part of it, I just felt very lucky. It's almost as if, you know, I've been given a second family. I tell my kids that Richie is my favorite son.
You're so great.
They appreciate that.
I love that. I love that so much. So, you know, most people in a midlife crisis, they buy a car, they
have an affair or whatever. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I was going to say they find somebody on the side or something, God forbid. But you decided to do something so incredibly noble. And what's crazy is this isn't even the first time you have done something like this. You're running out of spare parts. So you donated a kidney. Tell me about that, because that in and of itself, the fact that you're just constantly looking for ways to help other people, it just makes you my favorite. So do tell.
Well, the origin of that was I was actually a little bit of a midlife crisis. I was approaching 50 years old, and I was feeling, candidly, I was feeling a little sorry for myself and that I hadn't accomplished enough in life. And I said to my wife, you know, I just don't feel like I'm doing enough and in general, accomplishing enough in general in life. And I've had, by the way, the irony of that is that I've been very blessed and very lucky. And maybe that's part of it when you're given a lot of opportunities in life and a lot of things go your way. Sometimes that leads to a little bit of even a form of survivor guilt. And so I think I was racked with a little bit of that, because being Irish, I mean, we're supposed to suffer, right? That's our lot in life.
Oh, 100%. Are you Catholic as well? Because that's the double whammy.
Yeah, exactly. So my lack of suffering was driving me crazy. So I said to my wife, I just don't feel like I've done enough. And, you know, even when I tried to give my kidney away a few years ago, that didn't even work out. And she has a great way of showing a bit of disdain and disinterest in my whining. But then 2 or 3 days later, coincidentally on social media, she saw that a friend of ours a woman who's a teacher for our kids and also tutored our kids. Her brother, whom I didn't know, was in need of a kidney. So she sent me the link and said, looks like you finally get your wish. Time to start talking and do something. And the origin of that is that a few years before I was on social media, I was checking in on my kids, and it was, a friend of mine I didn't know had posted that she was really sick and needed a kidney. And people were writing all these comments, and way down around comment 117 or something, I wrote, and by the way, candidly, I'd had a few margaritas, I'd come home, and I just checked social media. So I wrote, hey, I hear that I'm a universal donor for blood. Does that work for kidneys, or does it help for being a match? And not sure I meant it at the moment. Well, cut to, she responded to the social media post and said, yes, it does. Here's the number. Go get tested. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I did. I got tested and I was a match. And I spoke with Samantha and I was ready to do it. And then she said, well, someone closer to me is really close. There's just an issue. And I said, well, who is it? She said, my husband. And I hadn't seen this woman in 10 years. I said, well, what's wrong with your husband? Well, he can't pass the physical. So I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he's a little overweight. I said, well, tell him I'll meet him at Central Park tomorrow morning and we'll do calisthenics and we'll get him in shape. Because if he can do it and he's a match, he should give you the kidney rather than me, and I haven't seen you in 10. So it worked out. He was able to give it. Sam was it all worked out great. And so that was when I decided at that point, when I was doing it, was then a few years later when my midlife crisis hit and my wife had me contact Greg. So I went and got tested for this gentleman named Greg. I was a match, and we got it scheduled, and we did that in July of 2019. And he'd had a lifelong disease, and it just had gotten pretty bad. So he was in desperately need of a kidney, and it all worked out. And that was a great experience. And while on, potentially this is a little bit cloudy in retrospect, but while on morphine or whatever, I was texting with Greg after the surgery that he was okay and I was okay. And I said, oh my God, he was thanking me, and we're being all sentimental. And I said, hey, listen, I really can't thank you enough. It's been the best experience of my life to be able to have this honor to donate a piece of myself to somebody else to help save their life. So thank you. And he said, well, if you like it so much, I hear you can give your liver away. And I what? You can? So I go and search this up, and so it's his fault, actually.
It's actually morphine and margarita's fault, but continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a trend. You'll see that in my life. That's a trend. It's the lack of suffering, and then it's margaritas and morphine. So anyway, I go look it up. You can do it. It's not done a lot. I couldn't find anything about someone who's done it twice. There wasn't a lot of evidence that you're allowed to do it, because who would do that, right? You did it once, you're good. So I contact the kidney place, and Erin O'Malley, you'll appreciate this. I contact the kidney, my donor advisor, and of course they typecast me and gave me a woman who'd immigrated from Ireland to be my, I can't remember her name at the moment. Let's call her Kathleen. And Kathleen says to me, she said, Brian, it's so good to hear from you. How you feeling then? I said, I'm doing grand, thanks, Kathleen. I have a question for you. I know I did the kidney and I'm feeling great and everything. Can I give my liver away as well? Just, I've heard of people doing it. We've never done both at here, but I hear it's possible. So what? You know what, Brian? I have a friend. I'll contact her right away. We'll get you sorted. We'll see.
Oh my gosh, by the way, that is the best accent. I love the way you do that beautifully.
Yes, so Kathleen, actually her name was Marion. I just remembered her name, Marion, but now she's called Kathleen. Okay. So I contact the liver advisor. And they said, well, we've never done it. We've heard that it's done. There doesn't seem to be any reason you can't. They said, but to be clear, to give away a liver, you have to be really healthy. And it's actually serious and you can die. And they said, nobody dies giving away a kidney. It's almost never happened. It's a very safe surgery, and it's really, everyone should consider giving away their liver if they're healthy. Giving away their kidney. People are desperate for them, and it's a great experience. And I was really out of work for only a few days.
I was going to ask you how long you were kind of sidelined because of that.
The recovery it was days. Wow. I was back at work. I was able to work remotely at the time, so I was back at work within a week.
Wow.
And I wasn't traveling as much, but I think I played a tennis tournament. It was July 19th was the surgery, and I played a tennis tournament on Labor Day weekend. So within 6 weeks, I was back doing physical activity.
Did you
It
feel
really,
a little lighter, a little
it did.
lopsided
It was a
without something on
lopsided
there?
too. Yeah, I still have that feeling. So anyway, they find out that so then you have to go through to do a liver. It's a much more complicated, and they have a serious screening, and you have to go for a psych evaluation as well to make sure you're not crazy because there are risks to doing the liver. It is not a common surgery, and I go in and for the psych eval, and the woman walks in and says, "I want you to know I'm here to kick you out of this."
Ooh.
Because you obviously have some sort of organ dysmorphia or something. There's something wrong with you. And then I told her that the truth is that the origin of it, in addition to the flippant idea about a midlife crisis, it really comes from the fundamental idea, which I was educated by Jesuits, that you learn to become a person for others. And that's kind of the nirvana, the goal of life, which a lot of people who are parents or even everybody who can be boss, there's lots of opportunities in life to be a person for others. But this just seemed a way that fit some gift that I have, that I happen to be lucky to be very healthy and highly competitive. So because no one had done this, donated anonymously. They haven't found anybody else. We've decided that I was the first one to donate both a kidney and a liver anonymously. Other people, we believe, may have done it because they had a family member or something. But I don't even care if it's true. We've decided we're going to say that.
Absolutely. We'll get you in the Guinness Book of World Records, no problem.
Exactly. So it was going through the psych evaluation. The woman heard that, and then my wife. There's a little Freudian slip.
I was
there.
going to say,
Yeah. So my wife says, when she asked her about it, she was in the room with me, the psychiatrist asked her, and she said, well, what do you think about this? And she said, his body, his choice. She said, if he wants to do this, who am I to get in his way? And if he can save a life, well, why would we stop him? And he doesn't seem to mind suffering. In fact, it's what his people are good at. So I got through the psych evaluation, and then they notified me that based on the way my liver was positioned, I was better for a child. And they don't have a lot of children that need livers. It's usually, candidly, it's old guys who drink too many margaritas are usually the candidates. But I got called in October during 2020, so it's kind of the height of
COVID and the pandemic. Oh, my.
Yeah, and I was at one of our factories in Indiana, and this surgeon called me I'd never met, and he said, well, we have found a young boy who needs a liver. And I think, okay, great, it's October. We probably get it scheduled for, December or whatever. And I guess that's not the way it works with liver disease. So they said, you have 10 days. We're doing it on November 4th, whatever election day was, 2020. So vote early, and you'll get here. And what was really interesting about it is that because it was COVID, there weren't a lot of elective surgeries going on at the hospital. So, when you go for surgery, you walk in and it takes forever to get to surgery, right? You have all these tests and these rooms. You go from this room to this room to this room.
Yeah.
It takes hours, and all you want to do is get the surgery over. But this was a little bit of the opposite. So we showed up at 7:30, and we actually had. I was on the table at 7:50.
Oh my gosh, that's unheard of.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, whoa, I got to go through the whole process. I need to. So I did have a moment of panic, which is great. I mean, and also, of course, it's not a common surgery. There were probably 20 people in the room because they were desperate for residents, and everybody was desperate for some exposure to surgery. So there were a lot of people there, and it was quite an experience. And I was then in the ICU, and of course, the other side of the ICU was COVID patients. And then there was me alone in the elective surgery ICU. And I found out the next day that the surgery had gone well for I didn't know the boy's name at the time, Richie. And then they said, well, the family had asked if they could reach out to me if I'd be willing to connect with them. And I said, sure. I mean, if they want to talk to me, great. If they don't want to, that's fine too. For me, it was about just seeing if we could accomplish this. So he ended up being okay, and then they wrote me a letter, and I wrote them a letter, and we started a correspondence, and now we've seen each other 3 or 4 times since then.
Oh, now were you in the same hospital when that happened, you and he?
So I was at New York Presbyterian on the east side of Manhattan. Richie was at Columbia Presbyterian, which is on the upper west side of Manhattan, up in Washington Heights. So no, we weren't. So I guess they took my liver in a little cooler in a taxi. I imagine
Threw it in a
getting
Yeti, and here we go.
yeah. I was gonna say the image of them getting into an Uber and going uptown. Coincidentally, I met Richie surgeon, one of Richie's surgeons. I met on a plane a few years later by complete coincidence. Uh, yeah, so I didn't meet a lot of them at the time. Again, because of COVID, masks, and people weren't chit chatting. But yeah, so he was at a different hospital, and I didn't meet him during that process. I met him after. When you donate your kidney, which I did with Greg, I got to see him the next day after the surgery, and that was a great experience for me, but also for his family. And I got to know them well. And Greg, the recipient of the kidney, has since gotten married and now has a beautiful baby daughter. And that to me it's inspiring to me. And to have that opportunity to do it once is amazing, and then to do it twice. Now, I did look into do it a third time. You can give away a lobe of your lung.
Stop it. I was just going to ask you. I don't think you have any more spare parts. I didn't even know you could do that. Please tell me
Well,
that your wife was like, okay, I got to
yes.
cut the cord.
Yeah, exactly, Erin. You nailed it. That she did. She decided that that was enough. Also, I'm getting a little old to be handing out body parts. But as I think I did my first surgery, I was 50. The second one I was 51. So they're within 20 months of each other. But if for people that are lucky enough to be healthy and keep themselves healthy, and that's one of the gifts that they have. Well, a great way of sharing that is to look into living organ donation, and it's funny. I was kind of hoping, my daughter has said she'll do it, and she's only 20 now, but she's decided that she thought it was a good experience for me, and she's one of the few people I've seen. But a lot of people just look at me like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But it's seriously something people should consider. It's I was a bit surprised at how physically afterwards they're great at the recovery, and you don't have to take. I did the second time. I didn't have to take any painkillers afterwards. Just the normal Tylenol. There nothing else. So really, the recovery is and you think about it. You're recovering. Unlike when you're ill or you have to have a surgery because there's something wrong with you. If you're recovering because you did something to help somebody else, it actually makes recovery a lot easier.
Yeah, mentally, I was even thinking that would just, how can you not feel great about, you're not just helping somebody, you're saving somebody's life. The fact that Greg ended up going on and getting married, I'm sitting here thinking that's because of you that he's able to live such a different life and life at all. I mean, I don't know how bad he was, but there are people that need a kidney so bad that if they don't get one, they will not survive. And I think about that, and that is, there's nothing bigger than being able to do that for somebody. And I can't imagine how much easier it would be to recover just from a mental perspective of, I did this because somebody else's life is completely changed because of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you look for ways of imbuing your life with meaning, and a lot of times, especially as you get a little older, at that point, we'd pretty much raised our kids. They were, back to the point that they were talking to us again. So they go through adolescence, they stop talking to you, and they get through it. So, but they're off on their own and they're living their lives, and you're just there as a support structure and a backstop to help them out, and that's what it should be, right? They should move on, and then my work is very fulfilling. I'm very lucky with that, and I do a lot of volunteer work, and get involved in a lot of causes separate from this. But this just seemed like a way to physically, and even physically engaging your body in helping somebody else. So if I was a rich person, you write checks, right, and you feel good about writing a check, but it doesn't actually have the effect of, hey, I went into a hospital and I went through a bit of torture, and out of that was able to save a life. So there's definitely a real fundamental connectedness you have to the experience, and obviously a real physical connectedness.
Right. I was going to say, stroking a check is so different. You can't grow back a kidney. You're giving a piece of yourself to somebody else. There's no takebacks. That's a heck of a commitment to saying you're going to help somebody. That is very different than writing a check. Although that's kind, this is above and beyond.
Yeah, and it makes for great stories too, right? And there are times people. It happens a lot at work because when you go out to dinner with clients or whatever, and a lot of my colleagues like to tell the story. I don't. I mean, the only reason I tell the story is try to convince people to become donors, right? So I'm not trying to in any way celebrate my own accomplishments, but my colleagues will do it because they just love the story and hear me telling it, and love hearing the idea that as soon as they said, "Oh, you could die doing it," I'm like, "Oh, great! Now I'm in. You could die now. Now it's exciting." Oh, I didn't know dying was a possibility. Now,
Wow,
really.
this is getting me straight to heaven. I mean, I am taking the
Really?
express elevator if I do
I have a
this.
lot to make up for. There has been some serious darkness. Yeah, so that yes. So if you actually have some things to make up for, please consider donating. And
Yes,
I
no
don't
kidding.
know.
I actually just personally was looking into it. I had cancer, and so the first thing you hear is, "Oh, if you had cancer at any point, you're not qualified to be a donor." But I'm gonna keep looking into that because you never know. Maybe I can find somebody that says it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like me saying I did ask the question because I actually thought this was a reasonable thing. So the liver grows back to after you donate your portion of your liver, it grows back to the point that it needs to. So mine's roughly 90% of what it was. The body decided it didn't need the last 10% for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. The So I did ask the question. I said, well, why don't we do it again? Right? I mean, if it worked, like, why don't we take another piece and donate it? We'll grow back. I mean, it's fresh. It's brand new.
Oh my
It's
gosh, your wife is going to be like, "We're cutting off your health insurance because I'm over this."
exactly.
So what
And
did
it
they
was
say?
there's too much scar tissue. So they did answer that. That's it complicates the surgery too much because based on especially the two surgeries, there's too much scar tissue. That was the reason. They also thought I was a bit crazy, but I did ask because I thought, why? This is like every few years you could harvest, the same liver, and I could tell younger people who have got it. Because also it encourages you to get yourself in shape. If you're going to go into surgery and have your stomach opened up. And by the way, just so everyone knows, the surgery now is all laparoscopic.
I was
So
wondering about that.
yeah, so Richie has this really cool, sexy, big scar on his stomach. I don't. I basically have little holes on my stomach, so it's actually kind of boring. And I thought about getting a tattoo to match Richie's scar, so I could at least have a story to tell.
Go for it. Part
Yeah,
of the
right.
midlife crisis. Do it.
Exactly. But it's all laparoscopic. So the only part of the hardest part to deal with after surgery is just the gas pains you have from laparoscopic surgery. But that's understandable. They blow up your stomach so they can get to the liver, and then you just have gas pains afterwards. But because I've done it twice, I know how to manage it and to deal with it, and that's why I was ready to do it a third time.
Nobody else can say that. With the liver, I am very curious about this. We were just talking about margaritas not long ago. Did you have to cut them out before the surgery, or how does that work?
Did I had after because they were so close together, just to get healthy before the kidney surgery. I also stopped drinking for
Sure.
a while before that, and then after the surgery, you're like, okay, you don't go back right away. So I was already not drinking that much post kidney before liver, so it kind of all worked together. But yeah, I stopped for about a year and a half around the liver. One, you're supposed to, and two, it just seemed to respect the process and what we were trying to do here. But now that I have a brand new liver, it's kind of like, okay, I've got I don't have the liver of a 55-year-old. I have the liver of a 5-year-old. So I've got a lot of opportunities here to drink more
Drink
wine.
some margaritas?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's a great way to get yourself healthy and have a goal for it. It's like, oh, I got to get out and get exercise because I'm going to go for a major surgery. It starts to motivate you a lot better, and then you develop this great relationship. I mean, to have the relationship not only with Greg but with Richie and his family, and to be able to go to his first communion and to be part of that and watch his very sweet reaction when he realizes his parents decided to surprise him.
Yes, tell me all about that, because that was what I had read in People magazine, and my mouth just dropped, and I went, "Oh my gosh!" And then I see your backstory and went, "Wait, he's giving away all of his spare parts. This guy, I have got to talk to him because he's incredible." And you being Irish Catholic, it's all making sense now. But what had happened? Did they tell you? Obviously, they told you ahead of time about this. Are you close by to him? Were you able to drive? Did you have to fly?
Yeah, we drove. Yeah, so I live a few hours north of the city in the Catskills in upstate New York, and Richie lives in Bay Ridge in Brooklyn, which I know well, and I've been there many times. So we actually look forward to it, and it was just a great family event, and they had a great big party, and it was a it was a bit much because the family is so generous and so appreciative, and I have aunts and uncles and cousins, and one of my favorite stories, which one of Richie's aunts said to her son, do the kid was an adolescent or whatever, and she's like, do you know who this is? And he goes, yeah, that's the goat. Which, I said to my kids, I said, finally happened. I became the goat for choosing suffering. At something, at least. I succeeded at something. It's like, so if you're going through life and you feel frustrated and you've succeeded at nothing, give a few organs away and you can say, you know what? I've accomplished something. I have bested the odds, and I got something done.
I'm the goat.
I am the goat when it comes to Richie's organ donation. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you brought up the point about suffering and all that, and what motivates. And I referenced earlier kind of survival guilt a little bit, and my brother was murdered in the Lockerbie bombing in 1988, and
oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was 19 at the time, and I mentioned that because I've heard you name your show about feel good, and I've heard Anderson Cooper and Stephen Colbert. They have a little podcast thing they do. They said the best thing that ever happened to them was the worst thing that ever happened to them, and both of them experienced really horrible and horrific deaths in their lives of close family members and close proximity to them. So both of them were right nearby when their father, their brother, and father and brother died. It was both of them had pretty rough experiences about experiencing death at a young age, and they both say that it was a formative experience and helped forge them, but it also enabled them and in a way freed them to live a better life. And so when I look at all the lucky things that have happened to me and how life's kind of go my way, and I always tell my wife that I've been very lucky in love and things, and I've had the normal challenges that people have with careers or whatever. But when I think back about my life and what motivates me to try to do something for somebody else, I think when my brother died, it reminded me, there was this great quote that I saw when he died, was that J.P. Flynn was the type of man who lived for others, and I felt that about him. Now I was 19. I didn't feel that about me at the time. I was living for me, but it really inspired me to kind of see what I could do to live that as I got older. Because my brother was, he was the nicer older brother, right? The kind of the boy next door. I was a little bit more competitive, and it was great having him soften my edges, but also as I look at my opportunity to live a life that he didn't get to live, how do I take that and don't feel sorry for myself or whatever, but how do I imbue my life with meaning, but also say, hey, the worst thing already happened, so every other day is a good day in comparison to that, and it works. So when you're looking for ways of experience, and I consider the organ donations part of that journey.
Wow. I don't know what you do for a living, but you could absolutely be a motivational speaker or a comedian.
I think I'd be better as a comedian.
You're
right?
very funny. I'm telling you, you've been cracking me up through this whole thing.
I think that's probably if somebody could write the material for me, I'd do great. I don't know if you know Jim Gaffigan. He's a great comedian. Yeah. Very funny. But his wife, I was at school with Jim. We crossed paths briefly, and we actually formed the Irish American Club at school together. But Jim's kind of a hero because he's really funny, but his wife writes his material.
No way!
So Ginny, that's why and he talks about it, but that's why he's so funny, is that, one, he's great, and he's terrific, and I'm sure some of it's his, and maybe he just makes a point, but I hear that she writes a lot of the material. So I've told my wife, who is a writer, but she's a novelist, I just need her to write my material, and I can switch careers. I am not a comedian for a living. I do community theater and acting, so I guess I get plenty of an outlet for that, but nobody pays me to do it.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, you are funny. And yes, you are married to Amy, is a heck of a writer.
Yeah, well, yes, she has the talent and I have the energy and ambition. That's the way I like to think about it. So I feel very lucky.
What is
enthusiasm?
I don't even, I'm a little afraid to ask because I don't know where this is going to go, but what is next for you? Because I feel like you're not done helping and making a difference.
So it's funny you say that because a lot of, and I don't know if it's unique to men, but a lot of guys I know, when they get into their 50s, they do go through a little bit of angst. You start to become somewhat irrelevant. Even at work, sometimes you can see yourself marginalized a little bit and kind of like, oh, there goes the old guy making a point again. So you start to go through a little bit of an identity crisis. And as I understand it, I think I've read that suicides are now higher among men in their 50s than among teenage boys.
I didn't know that. That's awful.
Yeah, it's if not more, it's equivalent. And part of that has to do with kind of the hollowing out of what was the normal experience, which may have been a facade of where life came from, where the meaning of life came from, and providing for your family and all that stuff. And now you're 50 years old. Now what? To your point, right? So your kids are grown, and sometimes your careers you can kind of plateau or even start to be marginalized a little. So where do you go from there? And fortunately, I was thinking about this when I was out for a run for the other day, is that because I've tried lots of things and failed a lot, I kind of scratched a lot of itches that we have, that I don't have the angst inside of, okay, what did I not get to do? I've been very fortunate in my career, so I've pretty much done what I wanted to do and and I have a great job now. I really enjoy my work. I get to do theater and art through theater a few times a year, which is really great. I have a great relationship with my spouse, and she and I actually do the theater together. She's the producer, and I'm one of the actors, and she's producer and creative director, and I'm one of the actors. And then I have my kids are living their lives. But to answer your question, it's kind of like, it's a great place to be, especially as a man in your 50s, to say, I've been very lucky. I've been able to get some things done. And now which is to answer your question, now I'm looking for what's the next adventure. But I'm doing it without the angst and desperation that often accompanies that journey. I'm doing it based on, I'm open to whatever comes next. And it makes me appreciate my work. Like I feel very energized, and I love my work and appreciate it, because I'm not like, I'm looking for my dream job, or if I'd done this, and all these regrets. I don't have that, which, back to your point about a podcast about feeling good, I feel very lucky to have that sense of calm and peace, which didn't come naturally to me. I mean, anybody who's like, I got to give my organs away because I feel sorry for myself. Now I think I've crossed over a little bit of into a different dimension where I think my angst and has subsided, and a little bit more of appreciation, which I hear about. People are their happiest in their 50s and 60s. There's a lot of studies being done about that, but I think I'm starting to manifest that. And I feel very lucky. So when I find the next adventure, a thing where I can go through a lot of suffering and get something done, I'm not going to shy away from it.
Oh my God. I feel like you should speak at a college or a high school graduation, because I feel like your whole life can be so different if you're doing what you feel this unbelievable passion about. You won't regret it. Sometimes you got to really work differently and hard, and in a way that maybe like you just never expected. But when you have a passion, a lot of times there's not a road that other people have taken. You've got to make it yourself. I wanted to be a DJ from the time I was 12, and I was like, I am going on the radio. I can't tell you how many teachers said, shut your mouth and open your book all through school. And I'm like, there's going to be something positive that happens out of this. That's all I remember in the 3 years I took of French. Fermez les bouches, ouvrez les livres. Which I'm sorry to say means shut your mouth and open your book. But I'm like, that is all I ever wanted to do. How cool to be able to play music and talk and get paid for it and meet bands and artists and stuff. And so I did. In March, out of nowhere, I've been in Boston market for 24 years, same station, and corporate just cut my shift all the way across the country. My boss had to let me go, and it was devastating for all of us. They're like a second family to me, because I'd been there for so long, and it was such a weird feeling what do you mean I can't come here tomorrow? This is where I've spent almost all of my adulthood. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this in a podcast. I'm going to do so. I had never even done one video, no clue. I YouTubed myself to death. I watched so much, and I bought the right camera and equipment and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? This is my next thing. I'm going to do this. And even if I don't make a penny for it, I'm not doing this for a paycheck or money or to get richer. And I truly believe too that if you're doing something you're really passionate about and you put your whole heart and soul in it, the money will get there at some point. I mean, there were plenty of times I was eating around the mold and the bread when I first got in radio. And at some point I didn't do that anymore. I was able to pay off my school loans and stuff. So it gets there if you keep up with the grind and you really keep doing something that you are passionate about. It's like you don't get tired because you know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be making a difference. And that's where this came from. And I get so excited when I get to talk to somebody like you, like, oh my gosh, your story is just, it's incredible. And the more people hear about it, the more maybe that will open more doors for people to want to be donors and make a difference. You're saving a life. I mean, doctors are way smarter than me, but if there's a way that I can give a piece of myself to save somebody else, heck yeah, that is incredible.
Exactly. And I always say that to doctors, like, well, it's incredible you're doing this. I said, well, you do this every day. You're saving lives every day. For me, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I only have, one kidney to give and a portion of a liver to give. And it's interesting. I love hearing your story because it's inspiring. And it's funny because one of the things that I learned only recently, I wish I'd learned it earlier, is the Gift of Failure, which is a great book, by the way. And it was great in trying to raise kids and allowing your kids to fail and how much we learn through life when you go through those trials and tribulations and when you have setbacks, and then what do you do with that? And it's how you react and what you do with your reservoir of will when those things go wrong and you have setbacks. Because, I mean, the best things that happened to me have been failures and where I tried something and sometimes there were humiliations even, where it was so embarrassing that, but out of that, oh my God, you learn that you go to bed every night and you wake up in the morning and the problem didn't go away, but you actually woke up.
Yep.
And now you've got another chance and you're energized. And I love your story, and that's why I love what you're doing. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for giving away all of your spare parts. And I am grateful though that your family's finally like, hey, you've done plenty, and maybe you can give some more blood or something. But I don't think you're cut off from that.
I do. I give the maximum amount you can give every year. So there you go.
Of course you do. Of course you do. It does not surprise me.
Yeah, that's it.
So I want to know, of everything you've done and the help that you've given and stuff, what has been the favorite, like the best thing you feel like you've ever done so far?
So I would say, and it was kind of crystallized when I first heard about Richie being okay, and Richie was the young boy who received the liver. That one was the most, because he was so sick, and because it's not like a kidney. It actually is risky for the recipient. It's risky for the donor. It was also a strange time because it was during the pandemic, and so the world was in an odd place. And to be able to take that weird energy that was around at that time and do something good with it, and now to watch him flourish and go from being a little kid to now being a bigger kid and starting to form his personality and his will further form. He's got quite a big personality. That was probably the most rewarding thing I've done. And also what's great about it is a culmination of a life of trying to be a person for others. Trying, I say, because obviously I'm as selfish as the next person on a day-to-day basis, and I realize that I probably fail every day at trying to be the person I want to be. But if you can set yourself up in situations where the momentum also takes you. So as soon as you decide to do it, one of my biggest fears was failing at the donation. So going through the tests and having all these MRIs, and you basically have to get this unbelievably clean bill of health. And the whole time, the only thing that I kept thinking is, I'm not going to fail at this. And I was obsessed about it. So there was real connection in my, it wasn't something that happened to me, it was something that I did. And therefore it invested not just my body, but my heart and my soul. And therefore the return on it was amazing. Don't tell my kids that the best thing that I had was not having. Because they're like, having my children was the best thing that I ever had.
Marrying my wife, having my kids.
Yeah.
Of course.
You would never believe that. No.
Well, but
definitely.
we just think that that's a given. I mean, of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
that's.
I didn't
yeah.
expect a generic answer from you.
Yeah, that would no, that'd be boring.
No,
That would be
no, we won't have that. We won't have that.
like-
Thank you so much. You are such a joy. You are absolutely making the world a better place every minute that you're here. I'm so excited I got to talk to you.
Erin, you're the best. Thank you for reaching out and for finding me, and thanks for what you're doing, and keep it up. Because I feel better just talking to you. So it's working. So.
Ditto. Thank you. You're so
Thanks.
great. Seriously, could have talked to him all day and then some. I just have never met anyone like him. And I'm glad that his family actually put the kibosh on him giving away any more of his parts because, like I was saying, you don't have a whole lot left. It's good to, keep a little bit for yourself. Even though the Irish Catholic guilt weighs heavy on that, I do understand. But man, I cannot say enough great things about him. Thank you again, Brian, for taking time to get back to the crazy stalker lady that was trying so hard to get a hold of you to put you on this podcast. Oh, and so we are in June next week, and I am so looking forward to this month because the guests that I have just confirmed are spectacular. I have a guest who could not be more perfect for Pride Month. Somebody whom I have admired from afar for quite some time, making an incredible difference in the world. And I'm going to introduce you to him. I have some special plans coming up for mid-month. And, well, I can't give too much away, except that I will say that there is somebody who owns a company that has inspired me for decades now. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to introduce you to him, and I can't wait to talk to him. So that is all coming up on Erin O'Malley's Feel Good Frequency podcast in the very near future. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Enjoy your week.